It began with rain, but not ordinary rain. The monsoon arrived swollen with fury, supercharged by the invisible hand of climate change. Skies over Guangdong split open and poured rivers onto the land. Within hours, rivers surged to their highest levels in living memory. The Suijiang River, usually calm, reached a record 55.22 meters, smashing past warning levels. The ground itself seemed to tremble beneath the weight of the water. This was no seasonal downpour. It was a monster, a flood spoken of as once in a century. In truth, it was worse, because this monster bore the mark of a new age, an era where weather itself turns traitor. Entire districts disappeared underwater. Streets became veins of rushing mud. Shock spread not only in China, but across the world. In Brazil, people watched screens in disbelief, seeing their own vulnerabilities reflected in Guangdong's nightmare. The fear was contagious, stretching across oceans. If this could happen in China's economic heartland, could it not happen in São Paulo, in Rio, in Manaus? The fear was not only of water, but of inevitability. Fear became flesh on the streets of Guangdong. Videos shared online revealed harrowing images, cars tossed like toys, entire neighborhoods submerged, people waving frantically from the fourth floor of drowned apartments. The flood came too fast. Families had no time to gather possessions. They fled barefoot, clutching children and bags of food, abandoning everything else. Some never made it. Bodies floated in the current, tangled in branches, lifeless eyes staring at the storm. In Jiaoqing, the water crashed through alleys like a predator, smashing doors, tearing homes apart. Residents screamed from rooftops as floodwaters climbed higher, swallowing lower floors. Voices echoed through social media. "Help us! We are trapped!" The fear was not abstract. It was filmed, streamed, broadcast in real time. Brazil trembled as it watched. Fear in Guangdong was mirrored by fear in Brazilian hearts. Because the images of people stranded, waving for rescue, were images Brazilians knew could one day be their own. As floodwaters devoured towns, the crisis shifted to urgency. Dams groaned under pressure, reservoirs filled to bursting. Authorities scrambled to prevent catastrophe, opening spillways and releasing torrents downstream. But salvation upstream meant destruction downstream. Entire villages, already soaked, now drowned beneath waves of controlled water. The urgency became a gamble, sacrifice some to save others. Meanwhile, rescuers braved raging currents in inflatable boats, navigating streets that had become rivers of death. Debris, cars, furniture, power lines lurked beneath the surface, slashing at boats, threatening to overturn them. Every rescue was a race against time, against nature, against despair. Helicopters circled overhead, lifting families from rooftops, while in shelters evacuees cried over missing loved ones. Brazil watched these scenes and shivered. The urgency was universal. In the face of water, all technology seemed fragile, all systems inadequate. And Brazilians asked, if their dams, their cities, faced this same storm, would they survive? Urgency gave way to despair. Over 300,000 people were displaced, huddled into schools and gyms turned shelters. More than 70,000 were forced to flee in Jiaoqing alone. There, families lay on cold floors, clutching children too exhausted to cry. Food, clean water, and medicine ran scarce. The shelters were filled with the smell of mud and fear. Beyond the human toll, the economy cracked. Farmlands drowned, their crops rotting in brown water. Factories silenced, supply chains snapped. Losses already reached tens of millions, and the number kept rising. Farmers watched helplessly as generations of work disappeared overnight. Shopkeepers stood in ruins, their inventories dissolved. The despair was palpable, not only for homes but for futures. Brazil, watching, recognized the despair. It was the same despair felt after its own floods and landslides, but amplified, ghostly, overwhelming. Despair in Guangdong was despair everywhere. Then came silence. Not peace, but ghostly silence. Power outages plunged 118,000 households into darkness. Radios crackled weakly in shelters, voices reading lists of the rescued and the dead. Every name became hope or heartbreak. Children sat quietly, playing with broken toys made from bottles and mud bricks. Parents wept silently, sorting through debris for something, anything, that could be saved. Symbols of sorrow appeared everywhere. School books floated in canals, their pages stained brown, their lessons lost. A child's shoe caught in branches, entire stadiums drowned, their goalposts peeking like skeletal arms from the water. Fields once green with rice now lay under ghostly brown waves. Silence hung heavier than screams, because screams end, but silence lingers. Brazil, watching, could not escape the chill. It saw in the floating books and darkened homes the shadow of its own fragility. The silence was not Guangdong's alone. It echoed across oceans. Brazil was thousands of miles away, but the flood was at its doorstep. Televisions, newspapers, and phones carried the images, and with them, fear. Could this be us? People asked. Brazil, like China, has rivers swelling each year, cities expanding recklessly, dams under strain, and a political system often too slow to act. Guangdong's nightmare was not foreign, it was familiar. The drowned factories, the displaced families, the overwhelmed shelters, all could be Brazil tomorrow. The ghostly warning could not be ignored. Climate change is not polite, it chooses targets at will. In Guangdong, it was this year. In Brazil, it could be the next. And so, as Brazilians watched, shock turned to terror. The mirror had been raised, and what they saw was themselves.